And blessed to be part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Some great stories right now on our website, KIDOTalkRadio.com, concerning, the pet-friendly license plate bill being passed. That goes to the Senate. Also, the idea of expanded police powers. Joining us now, once again, John Miller, joining us from Blaze Media. John, good to have you with us, sir.
Good to be here, Kevin. How you doing?
Not bad. So, this is kind of like softball for you, sir. We're just going to throw them up and have you hit them out of the park. What was it like on Friday being in the nation's capital when the president had that news conference, declaring a state of emergency, avoiding another government shutdown?
It was pretty incredible because I was in the Rose Garden when he gave the announcement. I think what was most interesting was you had a bunch of angel moms who, for people who don't know what angel moms are, which I think most people do, they are people who have lost loved ones, mostly their children, to illegal immigrants, to crimes committed by illegal immigrants. And they were very opposed to this bill, which was very interesting to see. They were protesting the bill, actually, up until the very moment that it was signed. And they were at the White House. And what was so fascinating is that the media treated them like annoying props because they got in the way of the media's agenda. Their line is there is no problem with illegal immigration. It's a made-up, it's a manufactured crisis. And they are proof to the opposite. And they were there, and the others in the media were so upset that they were there. One person behind me actually said, "Oh, boy," when he saw them. But it was just it was an interesting dynamic. And I think they actually convinced Jim Acosta of CNN to actually do a live shot with them standing behind him. But it was just an interesting dynamic because these are women who have largely been very supportive of the president and his policies. They were not happy with this bill. I think a lot of people still were happy about the national emergency declaration. Those who believe that it is, in fact, an emergency and a crisis at the border, they were happy to see this declaration finally made.
Does it ever get old for you being there, covering the president, being in the Rose Garden?
No, it does not. I mean, there are certain things that I think do not get old. One of them is driving down Pennsylvania Avenue and seeing the Capitol, and the other is probably being at the White House. Now, there are parts of the White House that do get mundane. There's the press room, which used to be a swimming pool, and they changed it from a swimming pool to a press conference room. So I'll put it this way, it's not exactly the most comfortable accommodations in there. But places like the Rose Garden, places like the East Room, the Roosevelt Room, those are places that, you never get tired of. And talking to the angel moms who met with the president, I've actually never been into the Oval Office with the president there. They said that is an experience that just completely overtakes you. And they were actually in there to talk to the president about why they don't think he should sign this bill. They said they almost forgot what they were there for because they were just so taken by the grandeur and the entire room and the feel of it. It's just amazing. So being at the White House is something I don't think anyone, even the president, can get tired of.
It is an honor, and we're glad to have you here talking to us on KIDO Talk Radio. So when you're doing your stuff for Blaze TV, Blaze Media, how do you determine what to lead with at night?
I think it really, of course, the news drives the narrative. I mean, it's one of those things where you look at all the stuff that the other White House reporters are reporting on, and that's a signal as to what not to report on. Because what I really try to do and what we really try to do is talk about the things that Americans actually care about. So, jobs, the economy, things that affect their lives, immigration, illegal immigration. So those are usually the big stories, not so much the White House, staffing shakeup and drama in the West Wing and, who's going to do what and who's going to replace this person. Because what I found is that most Americans, that doesn't really affect their day-to-day lives. Big personnel decisions, obviously, of course, do, because what that person will implement policy-wise is absolutely important. But the little minor staff shakeups, 3 people left the Oval Office, those kind of things don't exactly drive our coverage.
Does the TV do the president justice?
Do they do the president justice? The good question. I would say no. I think that they are. You have the numbers that show that most in the press are extremely unfair. 91%, I think, is the last figure I saw, negative coverage against the president. And there are things that I think every American will agree and disagree with on the president. But to cover him unfairly 91% of the time is vastly unfair. And there's no way that any president, someone that the American people disagree with 91% 91% of the time. I mean, that's just not reflective of the American populace whatsoever.
John Miller joining us, White House Brief on Blaze TV, Blaze Media. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. So are you shocked that the president now, as he predicted, as you covered in the Rose Garden, John, is being sued by 15 or 16 states, sir?
Shocking. And even more shocking that it's, I think, California and New York among them, just, run by crazy progressives. We obviously anticipated this. In fact, the president himself anticipated this when he said during a speech, I know what's going to happen. They're going to sue me. It's going to go to the Ninth Circuit. They're going to give me a bad ruling. It's going to go back, and then it's hopefully going to head to the Supreme Court, where we'll get a victory, just like we did with the travel ban from dangerous countries. So I think everyone was clear that this is what was going to happen. But I think those are the necessary steps that the president needs to take to fight this battle.
John, when we take a look at just some of the other stuff going on over the weekend, we've got the Jussie Smollett latest. Your thoughts on that?
I think in the same way I'm not shocked that the president's being sued by states, I'm not shocked that the Jussie Smollett thing is pretty much looks like it turned out to be a complete hoax. I mean, the police, they're saying he's not a victim, which kind of tells you everything you need to know. It's looking like he paid the guys to attack him because of apparently a letter that he received that was a life-threatening letter, didn't get enough attention in the national media. So, I mean, you've got to be really privileged so that, the only thing that you're facing is a made-up attack. And it just shows you that I think the progress of black people in this country, coming as an African-American male myself, I can say that it's really never been better life in this country for African-Americans. And the fact that I think you have to stage and make up hate crimes against you is a testament to that.
Which leads us to, I saw this in social media, and I'm going, wow, when you started talking about possibly ending Black History Month.
Yes, I did. And not because I don't think Black history is important. I think Black history is American history. And it started in the 1920s as something called Negro History Week. And it was intended to kind of highlight the importance of Black figures throughout our history. My perspective, though, is if you're not covering the history of America, if you're not talking about slavery and not talking about Frederick Douglass, if you're not talking about Martin Luther King during the Civil Rights era, if you're not talking about Rosa Parks, then you're not teaching history properly. So at a certain point, my fear is that we're just going to end up in a country where everyone has their own month. You have Black History Month, you have Women's History Month, you have LGBT History Month, you have Transgender History Month, you have Latino History Month. And I think at a certain point we get so divided that we should just all celebrate. We have the same story. We have many of the same heroes. Let's just celebrate American history instead of dividing it into Black history.
A lot of people would agree with you, but on the other hand, to be fair, and John, as I've gotten older, we look at our past, and America wasn't the greatest. And I'm not turning into a bleeding lib here, but you had this great coalition of the willing coming together to right these injustices. How do we come to grips with our history, or should we, as a younger Kevin Miller would say, just move on and focus on the future?
So I agree with the younger Kevin Miller. Maybe as I get older, my views will shift. But if we keep talking about it and keep saying all these grave injustices, at what point are we able to say, okay, we're past that, we're not going to harp on it, we're moving forward, we're in a great place now? At what point do we say, let's end this, and we're not talking about reparations and talking about how Black people have been wronged? Because I think it gives an excuse. I think it gives, whether or not this is how the holiday or the celebration, the event, whatever you want to call it, was intended, I think what it does is it's that people, teachers, people in our education system are using it as a tool to say, look at all these horrible things. This is why you aren't able to succeed. And they can tell young Black people that this is why you're not able to do great things, because you were oppressed. And then even worse, they'll say, so you need government to come in and help you. But I think at a certain point, it's baked into the cake of our history. You should be able to learn Black history as part of American history. And you can learn about the injustices, and you can learn about the oppression, and you can learn about the history, but it's still all part of the same story.
Well, and the idea that you had people, whether it was the folks that came down from the north, the Freedom Riders, in addition to the African-American folks that came together to right the wrongs, passing the Civil Rights Act and that sort of thing, why do you think that's underplayed, or is it underplayed, sir?
I would say it's underplayed because the history of America, we're told, is one of racism and white people are evil and white people have worked throughout America's history to hurt blacks and keep them oppressed and keep them down. If you acknowledge that that's not true and that, in fact, it was a coalition and there were plenty of abolitionists who were white, it kind of ruins that narrative. So I think that in the same way, if you read the founders' papers, you actually read that they were not evil slave owners. Very few of them thought slavery was a great institution. They wrote the Constitution as a way to figure out, okay, how do we end this? Because we believe that all men are created equal. It's in the Declaration of Independence. How do we right this wrong? And the Constitution was, in many parts, a way to try to fix that injustice. So they were trying to walk through how do we get rid of this institution that's kind of built into our fabric, but is not who we are. But it's an economic system that we've relied on thus far. So they tried to write it out. But the minute you actually admit that the founders weren't evil, racist, and that they weren't terrible people, and all white people haven't been wronging blacks for the history of this country, you don't have a narrative to sell.
John Miller joining us, White House Brief. You can get him on Blaze TV, social media. He's blowing up Facebook and the like. What's been the reaction to people, from people based on your stories, talking about still studying Black history but ending Black History Month?
You know, it was it was a mixed reaction. If you can imagine, some people weren't thrilled with my suggestion that we end the month altogether. But I got blowback from liberals. I got it from conservatives, too. I found that the reactions I got from conservatives were much more thoughtful. And actually a staff writer for The Blaze came with a very thoughtful, I thought, response to mine. He disagrees. He's also a black gentleman, completely disagrees that we should get rid of Black History Month, and made a logical argument versus what I got from the left, which was just, how dare you suggest this? How awful! Why would you ever say such a thing? This is, they were all emotional responses. So I got criticism all around the board, but I found that from conservatives it was at least more thoughtful and more rationed than just the howling, shrieking from the left.
John Miller joining us, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. So, Mr. Miller, what can we expect this week based on your beat covering the White House and at the White House Brief?
It's with this administration, it's not even a day-by-day determination. It's like a minute-by-minute type of thing. I think we're definitely going to have to follow this and see where these lawsuits head. I'm still very interested in the Jussie Smollett case. Not that it's a White House story, but because in smearing Trump supporters and smearing supporters of the president, and imaginary ones at that, because they didn't exist, I think what Jussie does is what's creating a lot of this divide in the country that you listen to liberal media, they try to put it on the president, but it's really making this it seem like Trump supporters are all racist, evil, violent individuals, and they are stoking the fear, and they are creating division in this country. In reality, it's people like Jussie. It's all of these fake hate crime hoaxes that you see that are causing so many problems. So I'm interested in that story from a perspective of how it affects people who actually support the president and how it affects their life. Because you see, they're not even there was a story I just saw where two people with the red Make America Great Again hat, they got a gun pulled on them. There was another kid who walked into a store and the salesperson at the store said "F you." So there's a lot of problems, and if anyone is getting attacked in the street, it is people who support the president.
John Miller, we appreciate it. We could talk for you for hours. We'll check you out on Blaze TV, on social media, on Facebook. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Appreciate it, Kevin. Thank you.
All right, our great friend John Miller joining us. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Somebody once said to me, Kevin Miller, talk radio sometimes is so negative. It's negative, 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 right? It's always negative. And the difference when we talk to people here, when they first come to the Treasure Valley, they go, what makes the Kevin Miller Show so different? What makes KIDO Talk Radio? We know it's Idaho's first radio station, but what makes what we do here so unique? Well, we're for something. Now, Bernie Sanders, he's back again, and Bernie wants to be your friend. Bernie wants to bring back socialism. Who would have thought that a now 77-year-old individual would want to run for president? By the way, I think most of us at that age, we just want to chill out and binge watch Netflix. But this is what Bernie's for. See if you can tell the positive nature of the Sanders campaign.
I think the current occupant of the White House is an embarrassment to our country. I think he is a pathological liar every day. He is telling one lie or another. And it gives me no pleasure to say that. But I also think he is a racist, a sexist, a homophobe, a xenophobe.
And add your phobe. I don't know, but what is really Bernie standing for? Anyway, he declared Bernie's in. Coming up next, Andrew McCabe speaks to 60 Minutes, speaks to the Today Show. The former acting deputy director of the FBI, at one time the acting director, talks about the coup against the president. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Your response with me, Kevin Miller on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. And we are so happy to be with you. Kevin Miller in the morning. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Before we get to traffic and weather and more of your phone calls, here's more of Andrew McCabe.
Jobs.
When you decided to launch these two investigations, was the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, on board with that?
Absolutely.
Rod Rosenstein has spent 28 years at the Department of Justice. A Republican, he was appointed by President Trump as Deputy Attorney General, number 2 at the department. Mr. Trump's firing of James Comey on May 9, 2017, set off a week of crisis meetings between Rosenstein, who was in charge of the Russia investigation, and acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe.
I can't describe to you accurately enough the pressure and the chaos that Rod and I were trying to operate under at that time. It was incredibly turbulent, incredibly stressful, and it was clear to me that that stress was impacting the Deputy Attorney General. We talked about why the president had insisted on firing the director and whether or not he was thinking about the Russia investigation and did that impact his decision. And in the context of that conversation, the Deputy Attorney General offered to wear a wire into the White House. He said, I never get searched when I go into the White House. I could easily wear a recording device. They wouldn't know it was there. Now, he was not...
Boy, that doesn't sound like a joke. More on that in a minute at KIDO Talk Radio. First, traffic and weather together.
Eric Everett.
Back to the phones. Let's go to Utah because gosh knows they need good talk, great talk in Utah. So we'll go to the state of Utah as we expand our presence here on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Liberty Linda.
Good morning, Kevin. Yeah, in Utah, voting for Mitt Romney, question mark? Anyway, how could anyone even think about the 25th Amendment, Kevin? After President Trump has literally saved our nation, I think if anyone else would have won, who knows if we would even still be called the United States of America. And now, you know, we have someone that wants to mess with our Constitution. My advice is when something has worked for hundreds of years, I say don't mess with our Constitution.
Well, don't mess with our Constitution. What do you make of Bernie coming in? Bernie's coming to get you.
Here we go. Bernie's back.
Back again. Bernie's back. Tell a friend.
Boy, we can see what kind of election this is going to be. You know, I mean, where do these people come from? I was thinking this morning, Planet X, are they flying in from Planet X? Anyway, coming through one of our areas, you know, on a spaceship or something, that's what we're thinking about. And, you know, I say to our president, keep up the good work, Mr. President. You know, the citizens out here can see what's going on. You know, we're not blind. We can see, you know, it's just so unbelievable what's going on in our nation.
Well,
I'm so thankful.
Well, we caught them red-handed trying to pull the coup.
Well, didn't we know from the very beginning? We have been put through this now since the president has been in office. Where in the world can they go next? You know, I know the 25th Amendment now, and now we have Nancy Pelosi again and Schumer, so we have to go through that now again, which we never thought would happen. And, you know, what Tom Munz was talking about this morning in the organized militia, don't forget, we have the Miller militia.
You're right about that, and FBI approved.
Yeah, we absolutely need the FBI to approve it. Anyway, so we can see that we have to prepare for this next election. What is going to happen, Kevin?
Well, stay tuned, little buddy. Who knows?
we don't know what's going to come out of it, so let's gear up. Let's prepare for it. I don't know what we're going to have to do, but we never know what we're going to hear and what's going to happen in this nation. So let's get ready for it. That's what I say. And listen to the Kevin Miller Show every morning so we keep up on everything.
Thank you, Liberty Linda. Take care.
Thank you, Kevin. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. More of your phone calls next. Kevin Miller in the morning on 107.5 FM, 580 AM. KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. Doug from Mountain Home. Hang on. We're coming to you in 2 seconds. First to Washington, D.C. Capitol Hill, our great friend Rachel Sutherland joining us on Fox News Radio exclusively on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Rachel.
Hey, good morning, Kevin.
So I'm reading the Cliff Sims book, Team of Vipers. And it's interesting to kind of go through the past, how Jeff Sessions was the first guy on the Trump train and eventually what happened to him. And even today, Senator Sessions, former Attorney General Sessions, is still on the president's mind.
Absolutely. He's been tweeting about Sessions, also tweeting about Andrew McCabe, and really believing that there was a conspiracy within the Justice Department and the FBI to have him removed from office. And after the interview with Andrew McCabe on 60 Minutes, I was watching the interview thinking they were handing the president kind of red meat, because this discussion about using the 25th Amendment to remove the president and the discussions about Rod Rosenstein offering to wear a wire. McCabe says he wasn't joking about that. I mean, this all happened after Inauguration Day. This was a duly elected president, and they were talking about getting him out. And so in that case, really, the president may be upset about the interview, but it looks like it could bolster his case that they were indeed out to get him. Of course, the other side, like Andy McCabe, telling Scott Pelley that he really believed that this was an important counterintelligence investigation, that he really believed that the president was being unduly influenced by Russia. Although he didn't give a lot of evidence about that, Kevin. I mean, he talked about statements the president had said, but no real hard evidence of conspiracy or collusion. Right,
and you just wonder what would have happened if it had been if this had been President Obama, the outrage that would have happened.
Absolutely. I believe that. This is, a different time in that we do have the Russia probe, and in fact, the official Mueller probe didn't start until after Comey's firing, after all of this and this discussion about wearing a wire. Now we know that Rod Rosenstein is going to leave the Justice Department as Deputy Attorney General, but that's not a huge surprise because he had mentioned about a month ago that after William Barr was confirmed that he was going to go. But it's interesting that he updated that just right after the 60 Minutes interview aired. And if anything, I would think, wow, Andy McCabe threw him under the bus completely.
Right. And, now we've got the Andrew McCabe from the Today Show where he was asked by Savannah Guthrie, hey, your report by the Inspector General, they've got four specific things. And now you have Mr. McCabe threatening to sue the Department of Justice. But even Savannah Guthrie saying, look, these are not, he just didn't get along. They were very specific about lying to Congress. This story will continue to go as Mr. McCabe makes the media rounds. What impact do you think it'll have, if any, on Capitol Hill?
I don't think it'll have that big of an impact, except for Senator Lindsey Graham has called for McCabe to come in and give congressional testimony. That could keep the story alive a little longer than his book that he's selling. If they bring him in and they do ask him more questions, like Scott Pelley didn't ask about the dossier or about the anti-Trump email sent between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. So if he's brought in, he'll have to answer all those questions. And so this could keep it alive, I guess, a little longer as far as what kind of trouble he could be in. I don't know. But it definitely shows that there's still these narratives, these parallel narratives that don't really have a lot to do with one another. They seem to be totally opposite on the spectrum of reality. So we'll see if he's ordered to come before Congress and what happens then. Otherwise, he'll be on a book tour.
And finally, Bernie's back.
Yeah, that wasn't a big surprise either, except who announces a run for president at like 6 a.m? He was on a Vermont radio station, and announced that he is running for president, and then released an almost 11-minute campaign video. I mean, typically these things are like 2 minutes long, but he was describing President Trump in some very negative terms and said that he wants to have this revolution that he started back in 2016. The trouble with Bernie Sanders is that he kind of led the way on the progressive agenda, and now he's got a bunch of competitors who are running kind of on the same platform. There's nobody really standing out as different. And certainly Bernie Sanders has a lot of name recognition, but where does that go in trying to select from candidates who are all kind of for the same thing? Unless Joe Biden jumps in, there's not really an alternative. Howard Schultz running as an independent. But, yeah, I mean, Bernie Sanders started it all. I remember I was with him there at the Iowa caucuses and in Vermont, and it was all new then. I mean, everything was just so radical. And he doesn't seem radical so much anymore.
Bernie's gone mainstream. Rachel Sutherland, thank you.
Thanks.
We go to Doug at Mountain Home with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Kevin. Yeah, it's no surprise to me that freaking, that communist socialistic jackass is going to freaking run. I mean, they grow them back there, Kevin. That's where all this stuff spawns out of, is back east in them colleges. I mean, every freaking one of them. I know some people that their kids from Montana went back there to Philadelphia to college, and when they came back, they didn't even know them, Kevin. That was during the Clinton era. I mean, people wake up. I mean, look at what's going on, Kevin, and just what you're talking about in Washington, D.C. There is no justice. There is no law, period. There's no law. Them congressional hearings and all that stuff is a joke. I mean, have you seen them get anything done?
No, not really.
No. And I keep hearing, I mean, God bless Sean Hannity, but he's a broken record about all this stuff against Clinton and everything else, but nothing's done. Nothing. Where are you at, Simpson, Crapo? Rich, where are you guys at? I hope you're listening to this. The only one I hear saying anything is Lindsey Graham. That's because they have dirt on all of them, Kevin. That's why Sessions didn't do nothing. I mean, that freaking thing you want to call a woman that is by the name of Hillary, she's got dirt on everybody. Everybody is petrified of them freaking Clintons. And just like I told David Leroy, I'm 63 years old, people, and I ain't going to go down for this crap. They want to play games. They want to come here, and they want to try to start a freaking war. Let's have one at it. I'm ready. I'm pissed off, and I'm sick of these communist pigs. So there you go. I mean, people, wake up. Wake freaking up. All right, Kevin, I've said enough again. I'm already pissed off. God bless you.
God bless you, Doug, from Mountain Home. He's fired up and ready to go. Andrew McCabe from 60 Minutes. Now, remember, he was the acting director of the FBI on the coup against President Trump.
Describe to you accurately enough the pressure and the chaos that Rod and I were trying to operate under at that time. It was incredibly turbulent, incredibly stressful, and it was clear to me that that stress was impacting the Deputy Attorney General. We talked about why the president had insisted on firing the director and whether or not he was thinking about the Russia investigation and did that impact his decision. And in the context of that conversation, the Deputy Attorney General offered to wear a wire into the White House. He said, I never get searched when I go into the White House. I could easily wear a recording device. They wouldn't know it was there. Now, he was not joking. He was absolutely serious. And in fact, he brought it up in the next meeting we had. I never actually considered taking him up on the offer. I did discuss it with my general counsel and my leadership team back at the FBI after he brought it up.
And if we can hold on for a minute here at 580-5436, this is Andrew McCabe. At one time, he was the number 2 guy at the FBI. Can somebody tell me what Donald John Trump did that was so wrong that would warrant Mr. McCabe colluding with the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General at the time, to even come up with this. In the military, they have the Uniform Code of Military Justice. You're not even allowed to talk about questioning command unless you're obeying an unlawful order. But this? Why isn't McCabe in prison? And by the way, why isn't Rosenstein in prison? We're talking about overturning an election of a rightfully elected president. Now, whether you like Donald Trump or not, this, to me, is treason. I don't know how you can summarize it any other way. Who appointed this unelected bureaucrat to make that call? And we all know Strzok and Page were having an affair. It was, I mean, you don't have to echo our great friend Sean Hannity that you can catch weeknights at 3 here to really understand what was at stake. I mean, for a while there, you'd have to go, well, who was Strzok? Who was Page? Strzok was in charge of these investigations. He was having an affair, cheating on his wife with Page. Gosh knows who she was with. Texting each other. Unethical, unprofessional, immoral. About derailing Donald Trump, about people in Walmart being stinky. About Trump and his deplorables. It's as if they were working for Hillary Clinton. Then you have Andrew McCabe, who was already compromised because his wife was being coached by Terry McAuliffe, at the time the governor of Virginia, the number 2 guy with the Clinton cartel. Terry McAuliffe has run their campaigns for a year. A brilliant, sleazy politician, McAuliffe is. And here we have the FBI, which is supposed to be non-political. And to the good men and women in law enforcement, what the heck is going on here? And, of course, do you know why they acted with impunity? They never thought that it would get out. And Donald Trump could have done the easy thing and kept incompetent Comey, who both sides hated, right? Both sides hated. And by the way, I'd like to think that if I were competent, that if I weren't doing this, that if I would have had a career in law enforcement. Because to me, that's one of the highest callings ever. To the men and women of law enforcement and in the Treasure Valley, it's getting more and more dangerous every day. We used to be shocked by shootings. It's happening in Meridian. It's happening in Nampa. It's happening in Boise. And you go out there every day and face these things. This does not make them professional men and women and their families of law enforcement look good. Not everybody can be in law enforcement. Not everybody can be in the FBI. And quite frankly, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that we have the former director of the FBI, the former acting director of the FBI, acting like whining, spoiled little kids because they didn't get their way and now writing books about them. What is that about? Kurt in Boise with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kevin. Yeah, I just wanted to call and say that I agree with you. These guys, I just don't understand it. They used to have pride and stuff. And when J. Edgar Hoover was there, I mean, I know that he probably wasn't the best guy and all this kind of stuff, but at least they had pride in their agency. Now it just seems like everybody's out for themselves, and if they don't like somebody, they just go after them. I think they're just all Democrats on the payroll of the Clintons, and it doesn't matter who it is. They just go after them.
Well, where are the G-men? Where are the tough guys? Where are the guys that go in there and break up the terrorist cells or take down the mafia? I don't think that. I'm looking at Andrew McCabe, and he sounds like a little kid crying.
I know. That's what I'm getting at. I mean, you got Mueller, he's the same way, and you got all these other guys who are just all whiners. Where are the professionalism? I mean, how can this guy stand up and say that he didn't know what these other people were doing when it's in, I mean, it's out there. And he was their boss in the same room with them? I just don't get it. I mean, just like when Bill met with the other, who was that, on the airplane. Oh, that was nothing. We talked about our grandkids. Really? You know, it's just one thing after another. I don't see how these people can even follow and stay in the Democratic Party. It's just unbelievable to me.
Well, and say what you want about the libs, but they have each other's backs, whereas we don't.
Well, I totally agree with you there, brother. I mean, like you were talking earlier, when we had all Republicans in the Senate, the Congress, and the President, and we ate our own. How come we couldn't get nothing done? You know what it is? That's why they're all leaving, because Trump was clearing out the swamp. They'd rather leave and take their pensions, and I think that's a whole different topic, than work with the president because he was the one that was duly elected. So I just don't understand where our country's gone, man. It's like everybody's out for themselves or try to screw America and screw the public. I don't know.
Kurt, we appreciate your thoughts on KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And he's right. This is why it's so important to meet every day, to go over the news, to get organized, to get rolling. Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you, Sean Hannity, who is on fire. Can't wait to hear what he has to say today. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio.
Up the first time.
The point of Rosenstein wearing the wire into a meeting with the president was what? What did he hope to obtain?
I can't characterize what Rod was thinking or what he was hoping at that moment. But the reason you would have someone wear a concealed recording device would be to collect evidence. And in this case, what was the true nature of the president's motivation in calling for the firing of Jim Comey?
The general counsel of the FBI and the leadership team you spoke with said what about this idea?
I think the general counsel had a heart attack.
All right, we'll let it go at that. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. How is this not treason? Andy McCabe, Andrew McCabe, Sean McCabe, smart guy. How is this not treason? And you talk about a sense of self-importance to even talk about this. What did Trump do wrong? The phony fake dossier that was doctored up by Christopher Steele, that was sworn on as credible by disgraced former lovers Page and Strzok, who had a clear bias. When you're a detective, when you have the enormous powers of the state at your side, you have an incredible responsibility to look at everything skeptically. Man, I'm struggling today for some reason. It's just so emotional. Skeptically. And here you have a man who was in charge of these things, Andrew McCabe, talking to the Deputy Attorney General, Rosenstein, about wearing a wire. Yes, the FBI counsel had a heart attack. Somebody should have turned these guys in. Now, again, we're not lawyers. We're not law enforcement folks. How can Mike Flynn be put in prison, Paul Manafort be put in prison for the rest of their lives, and Andrew McCabe walks free? His wife was a big Democratic bigwig. Bruce Orr warned them about this, that the dossier was false. And this is what happens when you fight that one battle that you shouldn't fight, that one hill that you shouldn't take. McCabe should be in prison, not on TV. Traffic and weather together. Kevin Miller in the morning.
Channel 7's Eric Everett.
And Kevin Miller in the morning here. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Coming up, we'll talk to our great friend Lars Larson. We'll get his thoughts on a variety of issues. Can't wait to hear from Lars. Remember, you can catch him weeknights 6 to 9 right here after Sean Hannity.
We talked about why the president had insisted on firing the director and whether or not he was thinking about the Russia investigation and did that impact his decision. And in the context of that conversation, the Deputy Attorney General offered to wear a wire into the White House.
And he wasn't joking. So we'll talk a little bit about that. This month is Black History Month, and it is very sad that we have a star of a major show on Fox, Empire, Jussie Smollett, who it looks like now has made up the allegations that he was beaten up by men wearing the MAGA hat. In fact, the allegation was that he was hanging out with his Subway sandwich, having a good time, and some people came up to him, two people, men in a MAGA hat, poured bleach on him and beat him up and put a noose around his neck. Now, looks like that was all made up. What was this guy thinking? We'll talk about it next, and its possible impact on reporting and race relations in America, all before Glenn Beck. We're just getting started. Stay with us.